You can see my screen, right?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
So we need to understand one more concept, why APIs are becoming popular. So once upon a time, we have a monolithic applications. Monolithic means everything in the one server. And nowadays, everything is a microservice. Micro is small, right? Service. So every module they subcategorized and they categorized as a microservice, and every unit is independent. That's called a microservice. And why microservice is becoming popular is they're independently you can test it, independently you can deploy, and if you modify in one microservice, you don't need to test other microservices. The communication between microservices, it will happen through API, through APIs only. That's what the microservice concept. So microservices are very important nowadays. Every company is developing the microservices only. Every company is developing the microservices. That's why API testing is becoming very popular nowadays. Because of that reason only it is popular. Because everybody developing the microservices only. Okay. And let me. Okay. So what do you need for API? So what are all things you need for APIs? So what things you require? First is the HTTP verb method, get, post, put, delete, and then request URL. So mainly you need request URL. Then headers. So what are the different headers you require? Like application JSON, accept application JSON, any, so authorization is there required. Authorization means whether you are giving a valid endpoint or not, and valid user is requesting or not. And also, if any data you are sending, you need a request body. Request body you need. So the request body is, you can send the request body. Because when you are posting something, when you use a post method if you use, it will be request body is mandatory. Okay. And these are the main required for any API you are sending. So for get to delete methods, you don't need a request body, but post put methods, you need a request body. So mandatorily you need a request body for a post and put methods. Then what is the REST API endpoint URL structure? Let's understand. So REST API endpoint URL plus API method plus parameters. So that's what your request URL will be there. So like this. So this is the protocol. This is the so till.com is the server host. Then API method and parameters you will give that. The question mark and AND operator after the so parameters will be there. And this is the one. See protocol host. These are the resource. This resource is available in the server. So client is sending the request. It will process here and the response you will get back. And for every request, as I mentioned, you need a HTTP verb method, get, post, put, delete. And then you need a so what is the request URL? And what is the request method? Request URL, headers, request body, all these things you are going to send it. So based on the HTTP verb method, it will change. It will change. So which REST constraint essentially prohibits the use of cookies? Stateless REST constraint, which which prohibits the use of cookies. And very important points you need to understand. What is URI, URL, and URN? So these are the terminologies you need to understand. In the interviews also they're asking this. So an URI is Uniform Resource Identifier, basically which is a sequence of characters that identifies a web resource by location or by name or both in the internet. So it is a method that allows for the uniform identification of resource in the server. So there are two types of URIs, URNs and URLs. So uniform resource names, uniform resource locators. So uniform resource locators. These are the two things you are going to have for the URI combinations. So this one URN, this is a particular name, uniform resource names. And so what is the URL? So uniform resource locator is a sequence of characters, so which is going to identify the network location of a resource. So identifying a resource or URLs locate resource by describing its primary access or location. So URL starts with a HTTP or HTTPS, and the resource is a web type data or mail to if the resource is email address, or FTP if the resource is a file. So if it is so please remember all these things. So the URL starts with the HTTP or HTTPS, and the resource is a web type. If it is a mail type, so it starts with the email address. If it is a file, it starts with the FTP. So syntax of URL is so like this: HTTP sites file name, or you can see is two types. One is URN and URL, both. Okay. So and this is the asked in the interviews. What is the difference between URI and URL? So URI is a resource identifier and URL is a resource locator. URI is superset of URL and URL is a type of URI, one of the type. So URI is often utilized in XML and tag library files like JSL, JSTL, and XSLT to identify the resources and binaries. URL is used to find web pages. So URI's primary purpose is to identify a resource and differentiate it from other resources by location or name or both you can use. The URL primary goal is to get the address of a resource or location of the resource. That's the main purpose of URL. So the schema can be anything from protocol to designation and specification. The schema is usually a protocol such as HTTP or HTTPS, FTP or LDAP, among any of them. So that's the main URI and URL difference. So what is a resource? A resource is a physical component, and also it is basically, if you observe one example, so if a motorbike, take a motorbike, so which has a wheels, brakes, headlight, fuel tank, all are resources of a motorbike. So in the motorbike physical component, you have so many subcomponents, right? That's the resource means. And so I already discussed HTTP verb methods. I don't want. So here is an example. Google now append /maps in the last of base URL like HTTPS google.com/maps. If you do, that's the maps. So resource is a maps. Google will launch Google Maps. Try same with a /news. Google will launch Google News. Here maps and news are the resources. That's the resources means. What is resources means? Okay. So get is a just to retrieve the data, and it is a idempotent method. What is mean by idempotent? How many times you call the get method on the URL, request URL? It's a status, state doesn't change. Same every time you get a same response. That is called idempotent. Get how many times you request, same data you will get every time. So put method also. So it will update the same data. It won't change. That's a put also idempotent method. Delete also. If you delete, and it won't delete further. Nothing will be there to delete next time. So the method is this also delete method also idempotent method. Okay. Post method. So post is used for creating a new resource. It's an idempotent. It's an idempotent method. That's a post method means. Okay. So that's all we discussed several times, but examples are the same. Get method examples, say delete method examples. So a delete method example is, so you can say deleting any file, deleting photos from account. That's example for a delete method. Internally, it will call the delete. Put method. So this method, basically, so put method basically update the existing resources. So like, updating the address, changing the name, renaming files, and so on. All these are put method related. So get method, checking the news, searching anything on the web, and these are all examples for get method. So internally get method will be called in the UI. If you search for the any keyword or you're checking any news, that's all get. You're getting the data and then doing that. Post method. So uploading a picture, sending a tweet, submitting the form, creating accounts, all comes under. So the creating the data in the server. That's a post method you will use. Post is not it important because every time you send a request, so suppose you retry the request n times, you will end up having n resources with n different URIs created on the server. It's not same. Okay, that's the. So get, put, post, delete methods. Okay, so these are the URL, payload, and result. So post method /API/inventory item, you will give as an input for this. Method is a post URL. Basically, it creates a new inventory in the server. Get method. So you will get the all the items in the server. Put method. It will update the data. So delete method. It will delete the data. Post method. You are posting data and post again with a different ID. And then get method. It will get the data. This is a very important interview question. What is the difference between path parameters and query parameters? So I'll provide an example for that. Path parameters and query parameters are both ways to pass the data in the URL in the APIs. But there are some differences. Path parameters means they are used to identify the specific resource within a collection of resources. Like in a RESTful API, you might use a path parameter to specify the unique identifier of a user, like a /user /ID, where ID is a path parameter that represents the unique identifier of the user. Query parameter, so they are used to provide additional information or filter. So maybe you can filter the results and search content. So based on this is how you will write question mark you will use. /users limit 10. That means where limit is a query parameter. So here limit is the query parameter and this is the value. So here /users curly bracket ID means this is the path parameter. In the URL, endpoint URL itself, you are giving the parameter name. So later the value, ID value will pass. That's a path parameter and query parameter difference. So example for path parameter is this one. /users ID returns details of specific user with a given ID. Post /ID comments returns comments for a specific post with a given ID. That's a path parameters. So query parameters means users question mark limit 10. returns list of 10 users. Slash post question mark category news, sort descending order. So basically, list of posts sorted in descending order by category news. So that's the example. So what are the common API testing types? Okay, then we'll stop here because already time is over. Tomorrow we'll cover rest of the things. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, sir. Thank you.